He's finally back.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Bear from SpikyBits.com. Today I'm going to unbox and build the new Be'lakor, the Dark Master model from Games Workshop. Now, this all started out great, of course. You know, Be'lakor getting an update finally after all these years of, you know, having such a tiny little miniature on a 40mm base. And to see the previews, and they just snuck it at the end of that one preview, and it was just amazing. And everybody's very hyped for this because we've seen so many previews for it. But unfortunately, it's kind of gone the way that most releases have in the past year or so from Games Workshop, where, you know, they're just not able to get it. And it's a scalper's paradise. We're all living in a scalper's paradise at this point, right? So this model is $140, but stores could only get 2. But they could get 3 of the books for some reason. So that's interesting also as well. You know, and it goes without saying, and I've said it before on the podcast and, you know, on the site and everything. If, you know, there's roughly 600 stores in America with GW trade accounts. Supposedly, you know, GW allocating 2 out to each store, that's 1,200 stores, right? Or that's 1,200 copies. We all know GW made more than 1,200 copies. When you bring in 10 to 13,000 of a Space Marine Codex, you know, you know what your forecast is for this. So a lot of people, you know, a lot of store owners very upset about this whole situation. A lot of folks think that GW is just playing a shell game with their stock, putting the majority of the product on their web store so they make their full 100% markup on it, and they don't have to share any of it with stores. I've said it a million times on here. I'm not going to harp on it. So it's definitely something to consider. You know, right now, I'm sure this model is going to go for 200 plus on eBay, if not higher, because they're just not out there. And we've already seen Curse City go for $400 right now on eBay. $400, 13 sold. Like it's insane right now to really want something and not be able to get it, and for the store owners to have to play favorites and not be able to sell the stuff. So I'm gonna stop now. Let's actually get into the product. I paid full price for this off a store shelf. A store had no pre-orders for it, and I drove 2 hours to get it, pick it up, and here we are. And I only have 1 copy of it, so I'm going to try to do my best job on this for you guys, because there's really a lot to talk about. Most of it I already talked about right there. So they include an instruction manual with it, with war scrolls, and also well, just the war scrolls. The 40K rules are also here on a data sheet on the back, but we already know there's an error because, you know, Warhammer community said this was +4 strength for this attack. Which is kind of remarkable because not a lot of things have 12 strength in Warhammer 40K. A lot of stuff has 10, a lot of stuff has 14, a lot of stuff has 16, but 12 is, you know, it's kind of pretty significant to kind of have that. So I thought that was really interesting, but supposedly GW's already taken down that post about Be'lakor stats for Warhammer 40K from their site. I don't know why, but they also announced that there was an error with this instruction manual. So they put out a PDF on their site. There's a download for it. I actually printed it out right here and went through and compared the instructions in here to this. And honestly, I didn't see anything different. So I don't know if the discrepancy was with the actual assembly or if it was with the rules. So I'm not really sure. So to GW's credit, if you're just trying to build it, I think you're going to be okay, which we're going to find out here, and I'll definitely let you know. Fast forward to one of the timestamps, and we're going to find out. But as far as the rules go, well, the rules are going to be out there, right? You know, there's the books for Sigmar, so you can get the war scrolls. They're in here, so if they're right or wrong, the correct one will probably be in the book. And, you know, we'll see 40K rules at some point for them officially, because they were previously in the index from 8th edition. So technically he didn't have 9th edition rules yet. Technically he still doesn't, but I guess we have this data sheet right here. So not exactly sure when he'll get his full 9th edition update, because there's a slew of special rules, again, we saw in Warhammer community that we're not really going to know about. Now, sprue wise, it comes with 2 sprues. This is a $140 kit retail. Obviously it's going to go for more than that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's a 100mm sprue. But let's take a look at the instructions and kind of give you my ideas for any gotchas or anything before we jump into the sprues themselves. So one of the things that I thought was neat about this kit is that it can be posed, or it can be assembled for either Age of Sigmar or 40K, right? Which is kind of cool depending on the casualty on the base, and also some of the well, Skulls is taken on his wings right here. But what I want to know is, and I think it's already possible, is can you leave these things off, just have the stairs, and make it for both game systems, which seems more advantageous. So looking at the base right here, now GW said this is 170 millimeters tall, which is roughly, let's see, that's 6, it's almost 7 inches tall from the base to the top right here of his winglets, which means that this guy right here, the actual model himself, is, I'm thinking, is probably around 3.5 to 4 inches tall. So somewhere around the 90 to 100 millimeters tall right there in that area. So it isn't quite as big as a greater demon. It is mostly on the same size base. So he's a little bit smaller in statue, but the base makes up for it. So the base is definitely part of this kit. And it goes together in a modular kind of, assembly fashion there that we've seen in the past. And then you kind of decide what game system, what variant you're going to use here based on the casualty that goes on it. And there's these little wisps of kind of ethereal smoke coming off of whatever his most recent victim was. But it looks like they slot into the same spots right here on the actual base itself, which is, you've got an arm up here and it looks like a head down here, and then the actual, or maybe that's a weapon arm, I can't really tell. And then you've got the model, whether it's the Chaos Warrior or a Primaris Lieutenant, slots into these spots here. But from the looks of it, these spots look like you don't really need to put anything on it if you just want it to work for either game system, which I would kind of advise, to be honest. Or perhaps there's a way to magnetize this, as it looks like the chest cavity right here is kind of open. So, but then again, if you do magnetize something and you swap it out, it's not going to, unless you kind of do some airbrush highlights around the base where it interfaces the model to the base, then it might not blend as well. So if you're going down that route and you play both game systems, Chaos and both systems, you might want to consider that. And we'll see if we can magnetize it. I'm not entirely sure yet. And then depending on which chains you want to put on here, it seems like it doesn't matter. They're both part 9 and 10, so for both systems it doesn't matter right there. And then you put on this this little turret collar here with some spiky bits on it. Then actually assembling the model itself, it looks like front and back's pretty standard. The tail has a lot of these little serpentine kind of scale things that go in the top there, and I'm sure GW is really good at hiding the seam lines and the mold lines and stuff. And they give you a close-up of how this actually interfaces into the hip itself, which is kind of cool. The little hip socket right there. I like it when they show you the extra versions and the views, because sometimes it's really hard to see. Like, I don't know what that is, but now I know that slots in right there. Okay, cool. Hey, that's dope. Thank you for showing me that. Looks like his toes are 3 pieces, and his leg is also 2 pieces on the top. The inner thigh and the outer thigh is actually part of the full leg, with just the little toesies, little piddles down there at the end. And then this is really weird. This his old I guess it's a thigh plate. You actually kind of push the little pointed horns up through it to make it way more three-dimensional. And that's something, GW, say what you want about GW's business practices, rules, creep, scale, whatever. They still have the best miniatures out there, guys. By far, by none, hands down, the best miniatures. I have never seen a miniature that wasn't Games Workshop's that I wasn't like, yo, that's not the dopest thing I've seen in a long time. I've never seen something from non-GW that I'm like, that's better than GW product. I just haven't. If you can think of one, please drop it in the comments, and maybe my memory will come back to me right there. But I'm just, this sort of design, I mean, just nobody else has this right now, and that's the now. That's the now. Obviously, there's a lot of scale creep. There's a lot of external factors on GW. From here, you can decide which variant you want to build. Whether you want the, it looks like he's kind of, is it both pointing fingers? Oh, I guess one's a pointing finger, one's he's just kind of standing there with his sword, it looks like, with his hand down. This is really bad representation of this. Maybe this was what, oh, so this one's pointing up and this one's kind of, that's really weird. Okay, so is it the same? It's the same sprues, it's the same, huh. It's a different chess piece. Okay, so it's a different chess piece that I guess presents how it looks. Oh, okay, so how it sockets into the shoulder. All right, that's interesting. Okay, we've seen stuff like that before. And then there's a different, no, it's the same. It's literally the same wrist and forefinger disassembly here. Yeah, it's these are literally all the same pieces. It's either down to the side or straight out, it looks like. Okay, that all aside, then you've got the sort of shadows right here, shoulder pad, same deal, the little horns coming up through it. And then assembling the head, it looks like it's got a lot going on here to get the jaw all together. The tongue is a piece, we've seen that on a lot of Tyranid models. Definitely makes sense right there. So you can have them with two different face plates, one with the tongue out, one with, it looks like he's just kind of got his mouth open, he's kind of hissing. And then that sockets into the head here, depending on how you want to do it. Then you put them on the base, and then the base itself goes onto the GW base, and then you're on to the wings. And it looks like there's no variant on the wings besides the chains, and depending on the chains, whether you're doing it for AoS or Warhammer 40k, you're going to see some, you know, 40k skulls with a little reticule or something like that, bionic eye. You've got a Space Marine head here, you got some laurels, and then over here you've got more chaosy stuff and different things. So that's really interesting to see how they did it. I almost would just kind of snip some of that off and make it more generic, because if you're going to use it for both, there's really no big deal to it. And I think I would glue down the chains, and it seems like a bad idea. But then when you think about it, you're going to airbrush everything anyways, and just coming in and touching up the chains themselves with a little bit of metal paint and then putting a loose wash on it, I think if you do it controlled, you're not going to have any problems with it getting on your airbrush work on the wings. I've done stuff like that before, you know, coming back and doing trim and stuff like that, and it's never really been a problem. So I think that's okay. So getting into the wings themselves, it looks like it's slightly complicated only because you have to put all the little pinions on there, and lining those up per number is going to be slightly maddening. But it shouldn't be undoable by any means. And then it looks like the little wings go into the actual arm supports right there, and then this is how all of the chains go on. So there's a lot of different chains here. It looks like these are generic chains, and then depending on which ones you want to do, either the green is 40k or the blue is Age of Sigmar, then they say use this, and those go in these specific spots. So if you can find a way to make these generic, then they'll match the other stuff there. And then you put the wings on, and that is it. So I'm almost wondering if these are magnetizable, or if the profile just really doesn't matter because it's not that big. We've seen in the past, like, you can magnetize Magnus's wings. Mortarion, I've seen people do it with Mortarion. We didn't, but I'm wondering if this is going to be a thing here, or it's just worth gluing it down, depending on how. And there actually isn't any look at the back of the model, so that's the big mystery right there. And we still don't see any back of the model right here. So let's take a look at the sprues and then get this thing built. Okay, so here's a look at the first sprue, and there's a lot going on with this. You've got the main wings right here, and I really like how they did the styrations across here, and it's all tore up in there. So you can really get some cool effects in here with some glazes and some airbrushing for sure. And then all the parts of the base here that go together. I don't know what this is. I think it's also part of the base. The different hands, leg pieces, torso pieces, more of the base right there. Lots going on with that. All the little horny kind of pointed spiky bits that come up through the armor plates here. Some of the casualties as well are on this particular piece, and unfortunately there's no slots, there's no pegs except for the toe talon bits right here. So this is all going to be, well, some of this right here for the torso too, it looks like. But for the most part, you're still going to have to trim off some mold lines, unfortunately, which kind of blows, but I guess it's sort of to be expected. And then back here, you've got more of the torso assembly that goes together with these little sockets and nubs. So it's kind of like that easier to build. It's not easy to build. His Sword of Shadows is like almost 3.5 inches long, which is kind of incredible to see, you know, it that big. It's really Be'lakor reimagined, which is dope. All the chain bits right here, so I still got to go through that, clip off the ones, and see which ones are more, I guess, suited towards probably being used for like both systems. Try to make it more generic between the two systems there. There's his tabard, his robe looking pretty good. Lots of detail on that. Same with the Sword of Shadows. And then his different face right there. That's probably the one with the tongue sticking out of it. And then here's his leering / grinning face. that's a little bit harder to see. Let's zoom in on that because that's about it for this this frame here. You can almost see his teeth. Yeah, there you go. You can see his teeth. So, and his pointy finger. Oh, there is 2 different fingers. Oh, that's really weird because it said it was both part 43. Huh. I wonder what that's about. We'll have to check that. I swear that was not updated in either of the manuals, but it looked like there was only 1 different 43 right there. So I'll check that out, report back. We'll get him cut down and assembled. So we did it. We got him together, but I wanted to show you the one thing that I noticed that was actually wrong, and maybe why they reprinted this. So in the reprints, the numbers on the hands are actually different. So there's 2 different hand parts in there, and I don't know why. I was like, man, these seem kind of weird. And then there's 2 different chests as well, so it does line up with the different chests. So no big deal, but that's pretty much all you need to know from that. Although there are 3 different heads in here, and neither version of the instructions correctly labeled them, so be aware of that too. There's one with the tongue out, one with the tongue not so quite far out, and then one just kind of leering. So, but they don't put the part number on him, but there are 3 different heads. So, you know, just look out for that, whichever way you want to assemble your Be'lakor. Now, I did this one a little, we'll call him system neutral, I guess, because he, let me turn him over without dropping him. He can actually be played, oh, let's zoom out a little bit, in either system, because what I ended up doing was I just clipped off the parts that were specific to that game system. And this one's supposed to be like a crown, like a king's crown, I guess, but he kind of looks like an Eldar, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave that. But I think it came together pretty well all together. And what's really cool about this kit, and it's a wonderful build. Everything goes together. There really isn't any super questions or anything like that. But he separates off the base with these slots, which I thought was pretty ingenious on GW's part. You could magnetize the wings, it would take a lot of work, but the one thing I noticed too, you see there's no like casualties on here or anything. You can put them on here, but they're not, it's not going to take anything away if you don't put them on here. So you can swap out the this guy right here, and you could put perhaps a magnet in there, but you definitely don't have to. But then you could just kind of blue tack them on if you wanted to use them in a different game system. The same with this lieutenant guy right here. I forget how he goes, something like this, but he just literally lays down right there. And then they have these little rubble piles that they want you, like it's a pile of skulls, and they want you to put that over here behind this. And honestly, see, it just slots in there, but it's just, it's more stuff to paint, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know if I'd even, if I'm playing both systems, I don't think I would glue either of these down. Although you could, I mean, and then, but just paint them separate. But why would you want to paint another figure? I mean, it looks dope. And then up here is where the other little bits go, depending on which one I forget which one goes up here. Is it this? Yeah, it's that thing. So that one goes right there, or this little pile of shields or something, I think. Yeah. So either way, you kind of get how that all goes together. So you're gonna want to assemble all this together, and it goes together just fine. There's these little cliff pieces, rock pieces here that lock in, and that's really sweet. And then everything on Be'lakor is very upfront and very easy to do. Great miniature, great design. I haven't seen a good design like this. I was really impressed with the War Master Titan for Titanicus, and this guy is they really knocked it out of the park with the design of this. So you know, GW, pat yourself on the back. This is a great, very nicely designed miniature. Y'all did your homework on this and spent a lot of time. And you know, even though you might have messed up the instruction manual, not a big deal. I think they did really good. So how's he compare size-wise to some of those other monsters out there? Let's see. Well, let's get these casualties out of the way. So just to a normal Primaris. There you go. You get an idea of exactly how ridiculously huge he is to a Stormcast, which apparently he blew up all the realm gates in the realm of steel. So all those Stormcasts have perished. They did not get to regenerated, so womp womp. And then Mr. Mortarion himself. Let's see if I can Mantis hand this. So yeah, well, when it comes to Primarchs, he's a little tiny. He's definitely a little tiny still. And a greater demon, I think, would be a good test. Let's see how he scales up to the Bloodthirster. So say this was on the base here, that would be there. And he's definitely not as swole as the Bloodthirster, so still a little bit small when it comes to the greater demons or the Primarchs. But overall, I think a great miniature, and you know, definitely an upgrade from what we used to have. That little tiny 40mm base. I mean, oh my gosh, he was basically about that tall back. I have one around here somewhere. I haven't been able to find them, but I still definitely have one. I'm gonna have to dig him out here in the near future and do a "You leave me and my son alone" picture, perhaps for Instagram or something like that. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed our unboxing build of the new Be'lakor model, Dark Prince from Games Workshop. 140 retail, but I'm sure it's going to go for more. But eventually they'll come out and they'll have some restocks, and people will be able to get these once GW starts up their new releases again. It's not like Curse City where it's basically out of print and they set it. It's definitely something that's going to eventually get restocked. So, you know, if you need it now, hey, scoop it up if you can find it at a good deal. But you know, it'll be out in the near future. Of course, you can always hit up dicehead.com, Amazon, or hopefully your local game store. But like I said, every store only got 2 of these bad boys. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification button so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos as well before you leave.